special episode of History and Games, an audio and video podcast where I, your host, Megan Sullivan, play historical fiction games and talk about the real history inside the game. You can find History and Games and a bunch of other cool video game related stuff on my YouTube channel at Meg Sullivan. You can also go to my Patreon at Megan R. Sullivan, and you can also listen for free on all audio platforms, History and Games. So for those who are listening and do not know what's going on, my very special guest is getting very close to the camera right now.
Have to.
Now, this is Austin Creed, a.k.a. Xavier Woods, a man who needs no introduction, but I'm going to let him introduce himself anyway. Austin, tell the people who you are.
My name is Xavier Woods. Well, I play the character Xavier Woods in WWE. But then we go with the AKA Austin Creed, the host of the greatest YouTube channel of all time, UpUpDownDown. Subscribe if you have yet to subscribe already. Also, make sure you check me out every Monday on the New Day podcast. Wherever you listen to your podcast, just type in The New Day and click on the pink picture with the 3 black guys' faces on it. It's fantastic. Even if you can't stand it, subscribing is an automatic download. You can delete it Monday night, Tuesday morning, and never listen to it. And still helps me out. Thanks.
Very good. Fantastic introduction. So we've known each other for a while because a few years ago you came on to IGN Anime Club, and I know you as a wrestler. I know you love anime. You're a big anime fan, so that's a big thumbs up in my book. We all know UpUpDownDown, so you're obviously a huge video game fan. However, something I only recently found out about a year ago is you love Greek mythology, and I love Greek mythology, and I've been waiting for an opportunity to talk to you about video games and Greek mythology, and finally my show History and Games actually gives me an excuse to talk to you about 2 amazing things. And the first thing I'd ask you is, how and when did you get into Greek mythology?
I don't know how long forever is, but I've just kind of always been into it. I've always liked stories and like origin stories of things. So I was always very interested in, I guess first what sparked my interest in mythology was my interest in King Arthur, because there was a show where, I don't remember what it's called, but it was like a high school football team, and there was an earthquake, and the ground opened up, and they fell into the hole, and they like landed in old school times, and the quarterback became King Arthur, and his football players, his team was like the Knights of the Round, and it was like the greatest thing I'd ever seen in my life. And so that got me reading tons of stuff about King Arthur. Like, I'm so obsessed with that kind of like camaraderie, and obviously they had their issues and their internal struggles as a group, but that overall existence of camaraderie was so awesome. And then like the fact that it's like something that happened in the past, it's a historical thing. And so that kind of led me on this path of like, what other stories are like super interesting that have these crazy long story arcs and all of these crazy characters. And that's kind of when I found like Greek mythology, because obviously watching like Disney movies and stuff, and then just cartoons, you'll see like, oh, Zeus has a big lightning bolt, and that's kind of what we get from it. And so I started just kind of wading into it a lot, especially because growing up like in the South, in the Bible Belt, like the religion that I was exposed to was always very like hellfire and brimstone and all this and that. And so I actually started trying to like dive into like other religions that might not be super expressed right now in our current modern age. And that kind of, again, geared me back towards Greek mythology. And so it's just always so interesting, so interesting, because there's so many egos and there's so many issues, and everybody's like kind of related. It's strange.
Kind of related.
Yeah, very related.
very. I mean, it puts Game of Thrones to shame just a little bit.
Just a touch.
So I got to ask you, who are your favorite gods and goddesses in the Greek pantheon? I know it's a tough question.
The only person, and I had to go back and like get super refreshed, because like I've probably been out of it for like 6 months, and so you know how like you start to lose a little bit. The only person that off the top of my head I can really think that I mess with is probably Hercules, because everybody's done something good. So like for instance, like Zeus was able to gather everybody to go take on Kronos, and they could then have things that they wanted, and they wouldn't be like so oppressed by him. And it's like, that's super nice. But then, oh, you just spent like the rest of eternity just turning into animals and going to Earth and doing things that are not so good. Thus creating like many demigods and stuff like that. But like Hercules, for instance, like he did a bunch of bad stuff while he was under the influence of other people, but then he felt so bad about it that he actually took action to try to like repent for the things that he had done, to the point where like he was then respected and revered like as a god, you know what I mean? So that off the top of my head, that's the main story that I actually enjoy, and it's one of it's a very good redemption story. So.
It is a good redemption story. It's interesting because before we started the show, you had mentioned that you'd seen Disney Hercules, but you and I don't necessarily agree on that movie. What are your thoughts about Disney's Hercules?
I think the movie's fantastic. It's a hell of a movie. Great. It's hilarious. It's got great music. But for me, who is like, well, I know that Hercules, like, I don't know what we can say on this video, so we take it out if you need to. I know, like, Hercules, like, murdered his baby children. Like,
yeah,
he didn't mean to, but he did that. And so I'm thinking a guy who has gone through that and has gone through so much pain, he's not the kind of person who's going to come up ultra charismatic. Hey, what's going on, Meg? I'm super strong. Look at me. No, he's like the most humble giant on the face of the planet because he just wants people to understand that he's feeling nothing but sorrow like his entire life. And so that's my only thing with it. So I love it, but I'm like, I want to see this Hercules.
Okay, you want to see something closer. What about the 90s show with Kevin and Sorbo?
I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. But then again, I'm like, I want to see this Hercules story told. This is the one that we hear about. We hear about this other happy, fun stuff. Like, I want to hear about the gritty, nasty stuff that Hercules went through to become Hercules.
Right. No, that would be an interesting video game. I'm just saying somebody can make that. In fact, I can see like a Dragon Age sort of BioWare-esque thing where it's like you go on all these adventures and you have all these choices and you can either sort of be Paragon or Renegade, see how close the story you get. So do you love Greek mythology? Do you have any cool like books or shows or like statues or anything? Like what's the coolest thing you own that is like Greek mythology related?
I don't know if I actually own anything Greek mythology related.
Can I show you something cool?
Please do.
So I've got this thing that I got at a Greek festival last year called a Pythagoras Cup.
Okay.
So well, you can't see it because
it goes away. Oh no.
It goes away because of my Greek background, but it's this really neat cup that if you fill it up like halfway, then it'll hold your wine. If you fill it past that little halfway point, then all of the wine or all the water starts to drain out of the cup. So it's like a way to measure your wine or your water so that you don't waste it. It wasn't very popular back in the day, and so as soon as it was invented, it quickly went away. But it was this neat little genius little way of just like measuring out things, and I was like, that's kind of cool. And I also have, of course, that background is going to make this invisible, but you can see little flashes of like some cool books on like Greek mythology and Greek religion. Are you just into Greek mythology, or are you into Greek religion at all, like the ancient Greek?
Definitely like the mythology. The religion's kind of interesting, but I'm definitely lean way heavier into the mythology. And I had a question about that cup. Is that more of something to go along with like the whole creed of like the Greek mentality of all things in moderation? So like that way you don't even have to think about it. You can just pour the cup and whatever falls out you weren't supposed to have anyway.
I don't know how philosophical as much as practical it was. Apparently, if I remember the story correctly, it was a way. So there were people working, I think it was the island of Samos, and they were working on a bunch of things. And so you had like a ration of wine, you had a ration of water, and this was a way to like measure exactly how much. So people wouldn't like overdo it while they were working. But of course, when you're working all day in the hot sun, you want a ton of water, and this little cup that I'm holding doesn't really do it. So I think it's one of those hilarious inventions where it was meant well. It was meant to like be a way to like ration things, because of course Greece doesn't have like a ton of fresh water on certain islands, and of course you want to have that idea of all things in moderation. But it didn't go over so well with the workers. I think they were like, I've had a long day.
Yeah, let me just kick this back real quick. I'll be all right.
Okay. So while you're doing that, let's see, what was the other question I was going? So have you actually, because you've traveled all over the world for work, have you actually ever been able to go around Greece and look at any of the ancient ruins that are mentioned in Greek mythology, or is that a bucket list thing?
It's definitely a bucket list thing. So when back when people were allowed to do things, back in my day.
Back in your day.
Yeah. So Raw and SmackDown was, we go on like our European tour. We go separately, right? So the Raw crew goes to a section, we go to a section. And so every time we look at the tour, I look to see if I get to go to Greece. And I'm never on the tour that goes to Greece. And that's like all I want to do. That's all I want to do so bad is just go see these places because there's so much history.
Oh my gosh. Can I recommend Delphi? It is so cool.
Yeah.
Like it is just amazing. It's beautiful, and I can kind of tell who's been there because when you go there, you actually feel a presence. It's wild. You actually feel something while you're there.
That's
So
insane.
highly recommend that. Now, we're here because not only do we both love Greek mythology, we both love video games. Now, I have to I have to ask you all about the cool video games that take place in sort of Greek mythological or historical times. And just to refresh our audience, there's a ton of those. There's like God of War, there's Kid Icarus, Assassin's Creed Odyssey has some of it. Persona 3 actually has some of it. There's like older games. Like, do you remember a game called Battle of Olympus?
Vaguely.
It's this like platforming adventure game, and it's kind of vague in my mind too, but it was a really hard game if I remember correctly, but it was actually pretty fun. You've got like strategy games, and then of course you've got the upcoming Gods and Monsters game. Are you looking forward to that?
Yeah, it's hard. So like I heard about it, but I haven't seen anything on it because I can't. If I'm looking at the games that are coming next, I don't focus on what I've got to play now, and I'm just
Right.
always in want mode. And so in order to stay away from that, because I know my personality, I'm like I still haven't finished Last of Us 2.
But you're getting there.
Yes, I've like got like 4 or 5 hours left, and then I got to jump to Ghost. So like there's so many things that like I got like blinders on.
No, I understand. You have to focus on one game at a time. But what's your favorite game in sort of the pantheon of video games that take place in Greek mythology?
I probably this last God of War.
Okay, the new one, the 2018 one?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
The
I can
latest
sort of
one,
see its
probably.
connection because it carries over part of Kratos' story. Would you say just God of War in general?
Yeah, that series definitely. For me, that's the one that I've played that I've felt the most attachment to Greek mythology.
Okay, so like what's your favorite God of War game? Is it the 2018 game or in the original
Yeah.
series? And you can include the PSP games,
Yeah, definitely the latest one.
the latest one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually liked that it took Kratos in a different direction.
Hmm.
So that was good. Did you ever play Kid Icarus Uprising?
Yeah, but it's been so long.
It's been so long.
But I know I used to play it.
So so Game Explain actually has this like little retrospective that they're doing right now about it, and so I'm actually playing the game right now, and it's fun. It's actually surprisingly fun. It's goofy, and there's like more like actual accurate history in the game, kind of hidden in it that I didn't expect. Because if you ever play those games, they're like, it's got like eggplants and like weird enemies with like big noses and glasses and like credit cards, and it doesn't
Yeah.
seem very accurate. But if you deep dive it, there's actually a lot of interesting history that's kind of like a lot of Greek mythology that's like hidden in it. So like Kid Icarus is like this amalgam of like Icarus, Perseus, and Eros. And then when you kind of deep dive that, you're like, wow, I didn't expect Nintendo to be that accurate. Whether they meant to or not, I don't know,
Yeah.
but it's actually pretty cool. Now I
See,
can't.
that's what I want. I want a game where we get the more, and obviously, and like people listening, I assume that they're all into Greek mythology. Most of them probably know way more about it than I do. But the fact that like we have a story, but obviously those stories are all told by word of mouth. So like there's all these different versions of the story, but within them, there's these incredible story arcs that I feel like I want to see those actually played out in video games. Like I want to see Perseus's whole journey of going through and trying to like get to the point where he can fight Medusa and then get the head. And then as he's traveling back home, oh, I'm going to stop and make sure that this princess gets saved. So I'm going to beat this monster. Then she's going to become my wife. Then she's going to go with me back home. I'll show the Medusa head that I got it and nobody thought that I could. And now everybody gets turned to stone and now I'm in charge again. Like I want to see that go down. But the thing that I think is really interesting about Greek mythology is the fact that like within that story, there's 19 other stories. So when we take like Athena, who is the one who like created Medusa, she then helps Perseus destroy her, and it's like, wait, you did this to make her safe because of what happened with her in Hades. Like, there's so much stuff, and I want the longest game ever,
You want
detailing
it to be
everything.
like a 200-hour open world game where like Perseus goes on all of his adventures and talks to all of these people.
Yes.
That's why I think like Perseus and Hercules would be like so good to focus. I know there was a Jason and the Argonauts game for the PlayStation 3 years ago. I think it was called Rise of the Argonauts.
Yeah.
Did you play that
No.
game?
No,
I
remember
remember
it being a thing though.
vaguely playing that game, and it like I liked it, but there was something about the controls, or there was some. It was like an early PlayStation 3 game, but like I don't know if it was as epic as what we're talking about. Like this, just these huge kind of open world games where like you go on all these adventures and you get into the nitty gritty parts of Greek mythology. So something fun that I did is I asked some of my Patreon users if they had any questions for you about Greek mythology and video games in general. And I got a really good one from Frank A.
Uh-oh.
He wants to know if there was a Greek myth-inspired Smash Brothers style game with heroes and villains and gods and goddesses and monsters, who would you have on the roster?
So it's like everybody. I want
okay.
I want the harpies.
Sweet. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, because then you get all of them. I want Echo.
Oh, that's so Echo's power would be what though?
That she can make it so that your opponent's disoriented because they don't know where she's coming from because she can throw her voice.
Oh, that's cool. I like that.
We'll go Hercules. I want Paris in the game because I can't stand Paris. You
just want to beat him up.
Yeah. And then Hera, Athena, Zeus, Hades, obviously like all the heavy hitters. And then I want Kronos to be the last boss.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That definitely makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, that's a good answer. I would definitely have like sort of like a mix of like Titans and underworld gods and like Olympian gods, because then you get all the different kinds of diverse gameplay mechanics.
Like
in there.
what's Persephone's mom's name?
Demeter.
Yeah. So I want her, because then when she puts her powers out, everybody's slipping around because it's ice. She's like, no more crops, it's winter.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually like that. It's just like everyone has like their one thing that they're known for. So Zeus obviously is going to call down lightning. Hermes would be like really fast. Hades could be invisible because of his helmet. Oh, there's a lot to work with.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay, Mick M asks, there's all sorts of huge oversized monsters in Greek mythology. Which are your favorites? Like just regular giants, cyclops, titans? Which of those like huge kind of over the top monsters is like the most impressive to you?
Yeah. We'll go Cyclops then.
Cyclops?
Yeah. Because for some reason in my brain I was like, well, if we're going monster, people would say and treat Hephaestus like a monster, but he could like make so much cool stuff. But then he kind of sucked too. Everybody kind of sucked.
Yeah, everyone had like, I love that the gods have like a very godly side, but they also have a very human sort of flawed side as well. So they're like a reflection of people.
Yeah, that's what's interesting about it to me, because again, so when I was studying religions, this whole idea of like, man is made in the image of God. And then I was like, well, okay, in Greek mythology, that sounds very correct to me, because there are tons of humans that if they had these powers, these are the terrible things that they would do, because there's some humans that are just like that. And so there are humans with like these crazy egos. And so someone says, oh, I'm the best at this. And then a god goes, well, I'm a god, so I'm better than you. And then they mess them up and do something bad to him. I feel like it's a very, very clear parallel between humanity and gods throughout the Greek god universe.
Anything else you want to promote while you're here? I'm gonna start wrapping things up a bit, but you have so many projects that you work on, Up, Down, Down. Anything exciting or interesting?
Not anything else. Like I said, the YouTube channel Up, Down, Down. Go subscribe to that. New Day podcast every Monday. Go subscribe to that. I'm on twitch.tv/Austin Creed. So go to me on that. Then follow me on socials at Xavier Woods PhD. That's Instagram and Twitter. Like I said, and Twitter. And also, if you talk to me on the internet, please make sure to use the hashtag Creed4G4, because I'm trying to get a hosting gig at G4. Thanks.
Yes, I did that. I did that as well, because I think you'd be an awesome host for G4. It just seems like a very natural fit.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I hope so. We'll see.
Yes. And you can find me also on Twitter at MEGHAN_IGN. And you can find me on YouTube at Meg Sullivan. And you can also find my audio version of my podcast, History N apostrophe Games, on all audio platforms, including Stitcher and iTunes, all that good stuff. And of course, please, please, if you can, support me on Patreon at Meghan, Meghanr Sullivan. Austin, thank you so much for coming on and talking about Greek mythology with me.
Of course. Thank you for having me. It's great.
All right. All right. So I will wrap this recording up and I will see and talk to my audience later.